David, you're the Hibs legend who started his career at Hearts, of all clubs, 2 years at Hearts, and then you were lured south by a little known club called Manchester United.
Yeah, well, I think I obviously Edinburgh born, grew up in the city. I actually joined Tynecastle Hearts or Hearts Boys Club from 9 or something, so from quite a young age. But from about 14, I always kind of knew I was going to try and go down south. I had the opportunity, several occasions, to go down to Manchester. Obviously loved every moment of that, and then as soon as I got my standard grades at school, I was on my way down south, which was the best decision I ever made for my football play.
Signed pro terms at what, 16?
16, well, it wasn't a pro at that time, it was like a scholarship thing. So I still done a couple of days a week at school, like a college course type thing at school, and then turned professional. At that time it was a 2-year scholar and a 1-year pro, but after 1 year the rules changed and I was able to turn pro at 17.
And they paid money for you, which would have added to your self-esteem at that particular time?
Well, I don't know about that. It was more the compensation side to it and what that looks like. For me, it was just the opportunity to go and play at that time, still is, in my opinion, one of the biggest clubs in the world. So an incredible opportunity for me. And as I've already said, the biggest thing I've always got from that was, one, the opportunity to go there, but to learn how to be a proper professional, and that's definitely what I learned from that.
Phenomenal. What, six years in total, I think you were there, David. And then when you start get to train with the first team, my word, you're talking legends there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that was probably the big thing when you get the opportunity to go down. And I grew up watching the Premier League. I grew up playing Championship Manager and all these players, and you're starting to see them, and then you're walking past them in the corridor. You know, it's very surreal.
Go on, name drop.
No, I don't like dropping, but obviously the class of '92 players that were always coming through were brilliant to me. The ones that were there, especially like Gary Neville. I was actually a winner when I first went down, and then a few slide tackles in training, and quickly got moved to right back. Realised that I was nowhere near technically good enough to be a winger for Man United, so was quickly moved to right back.
Be your David Beckhams, your Paul Scholes.
Yeah, Beckham actually had left by that point. That was, I think,
of course, aye.
That was the first season he left. I think was the year I joined full time. But it's the names you just rattled out there. You know, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, Ronaldo joined into that season. Wayne Rooney, Michael Carrick. You know, top football players, and even just to, I'm not saying I trained on them every day because I definitely didn't. I was never a regular first team player, but whenever I got the opportunity to go and do that, it was something I was, obviously you learn so much in such a quick period of time, and you also learn to make sure you keep a hold of the ball because you don't get it back very often if you give it away. So, and also the standards that set there. You obviously, like Keane, captain at the time, was, you didn't even have to speak to the young boys at times. He could just give you that look as if to say, you know, what's required to be a Man United player, and there's no other, in my opinion, the greatest man I've ever lived in terms of Sir Alex Ferguson, and what the discipline he put in these young players, and it's something that will live with me forever. The message he used to give to us when we were younger.
Henrik Larsson as well, of course, would have been at United. How much of a period was he there?
Just a short period with me, to be honest. I think I was in between. I had many injuries, but also had a few loan periods as well. So I was, never forget though, a training session, and I actually played centre back in a bounce game. So it was like a bounce game. You hadn't had minutes at the weekend or whatever, maybe a Sunday morning or something. Let's just say the game Saturday, played a bounce game on the Sunday, and then I played centre forward. I found out I wasn't a centre back, let's just say, off the back of that. It wasn't just his movement, but at the same time, his movement as well as the quality of players that can find them. You know, forgiven for a young player, but again, you have to adapt, you have to learn, and I don't know why I wasn't there very long.
Amazing experiences, and of course you touched on Sir Alex, of course, and how many kind of direct moments did you have to maybe speak with Sir Alex or get some advice from Sir Alex?
I think
was even involved in your signing, I should have asked.
100%. That's the biggest
remiss
thing.
of me.
He knew everything about every single player from day one, whether it be your family, whether it be you know, just where you were staying in terms of the digs, your name, day one, everything that came with it. I actually was fortunate enough to speak to him only a few weeks ago, just on the passing. He'd been speaking to Malky, and I managed to have a conversation with him, and he quickly went back into the boss mode and was talking about
brilliant.
Obviously, big moment for him was the day we won the cup. He was obviously preparing for a cup final himself, and he wrote me a nice letter after the cup final and things like that. So no, massive influence. Not, I wouldn't say directly on my, well, definitely directly on my career in terms of what he stood for and the discipline he put in his young players. And I think there's no coincidence that when I think back to the young players I was fortunate enough to be playing with and growing up with, how many of them went on to have successful careers, and a lot of that's just to do with the standard that was set, the discipline that was put into the young players. And I probably definitely learnt the difference between being a football player but being a professional. I think that was the bit.
So he was involved quite a bit in getting you down to Manchester in the first place. Did he give you the big sell? Did he give you the?
No, didn't take much for me, to be honest. I think it was he was obviously part of it. I went down and met him. Myself and my family went down to Old Trafford. Went to watch a game and met him before the game. And you're sitting in the office speaking to him. I've actually never forget that day for probably the wrong reasons. I wore this Rascal Burberry shirt for some silly reasons. And then during that period, if I think that my mum, after the cup final, decided to give that to the papers, so that was all over the papers, this Rascal Burberry shirt that I wore that day. So that's probably one of my regrets. Then they just put on a plain t-shirt or something like that. But no, obviously at that point I was just a 15-year-old boy sitting in Sir Alex Ferguson's office before a game, and he's telling you that he wants you to come and join the club and hopefully one day go and play at Old Trafford. And I think, when you hear that coming from such a powerful guy, and as I've already said, I was a Man United fan growing up as well. I'd been to a couple of games as a young guy, but nothing major, but always, as soon as I had the opportunity to go there, I knew that's where I wanted to go.
So when they had the recent conversation with you, did he speak to you like one of his sons, proud that you've come so far and now you're a manager as well?
That was more just I think actually, I never forget the very start of it. Malky says, I've got your former fullback on the phone, and they actually signed him as an outside right. So for him to even think about that was unbelievable. So, no, as I say, he was such a top manager, and what he's went on to achieve and everything else that comes with it, and some of the things that I have now, the standard setting and professionalism and timekeeping was a big thing with the manager. He was always, I'll never forget the first thing he said to us on day one was, never ever be late. If you're ever late, it means that your time's more important than anybody else's, and it's something that's always stuck with me. And just wee nuggets of information that he always had.
How aware was he when he spoke to you of how things had been going here and what you've been through?
Very much so. I think that's what he is. He's a fountain of knowledge in the game. He loves the game. Loves the Scottish game as well. Been involved in it, and he basically just was saying to me, just keep doing what you're doing, keep believing in what you've done. And be grateful for what you've got, your family and everything else that comes with it, because as much as we get caught up in the day-to-day things, the sacrifices that your families have to make. My wife having to bring up the kids a lot more on her own, not on her own, but I'm there a lot less and can be preoccupied and distracted at times, so that's a big part of it as well, and all the sacrifices that they go through, because they lose as much as anything when I lose in a game at the weekend. And I'm not the most sociable guy in the world anyway, so if I've not got the right result as well, I wouldn't imagine I'm a very good company, so they definitely love it as well.
One moment, we have to speak about it. I mean, probably one of the most iconic goals in Scottish football history. The near post run, Henderson corner, near post run, had you worked in that in training, or was that the cup final 2016 ended a 114-year wait for Hibs to win the Scottish Cup? Fabulous moment. Had you worked in that in training, or was it just an off the cuff?
Definitely wasn't just off the cuff. I think going into the game, it was an area we felt we could be quite strong. I think Rangers had actually conceded quite a few goals for set pieces that season. We knew we had good delivery, and we also had people that were aggressive enough to go and put their head on it. Stokesy obviously scored from a corner initially to make it 2-2. So that when you've got the delivery right, you've always got a chance. You still had, obviously, Derek McGregor, Liam Fontaine, big boys that could go and attack the ball as well. So we always knew that was an area where, if we could get the delivery right, we could cause problems. On that occasion, the four of us got met on the penalty spot, and Nicholas Gunnarsson was going to go on, and I was going to follow on behind him into that front post as number 2 runner. And as soon as the ball was in the air, I knew I was getting it.
That's an incredible moment.
It was. I knew
did you have that sense?
If
I keep this right, it's a goal.
I just felt like when the ball was in the air, I was getting it straight away. And then it's not until I watch it back, people would say maybe defensively they should have done better, but it didn't feel like that at the time. I just felt like this is coming and I'm getting it. And then I knew as soon as I made contact with it, I knew it was a goal, just because you can tell with the contact you get on it.
It's even more impressive because you've got time to think about it. You could have put it over the bar, you could have lost your nerve, you could have done anything but score, but you've maintained the focus on the ball coming in. It's a huge moment.
I think I was just probably thinking to myself, I never had any more in the tank if this goes to extra time. Absolutely knackered, nothing else to give. No, I think in that moment you just do everything you can to try and get your head on the end of it. And then obviously I knew for the contact I got on it that it was going to be hard to save. And then for that moment, it's a bit of a blot, to be honest.
See, when you see the ball hitting the net, how we can imagine how it feels, but how would you describe that moment? You thought it's a goal, it's in, and I think we've just won the cup.
It's hard to put into words because I get asked that question all the time. Like, how did it feel? How did it feel when that happened? And I still really can't put it into words. I think if you watch back the celebration, it was like 5 or 6 celebrations, and one I had no idea what I was doing. I was like a wild horse trying to get out the stadium. Somehow I don't know where I was going. I quickly looked to the side and realised that I just wanted to run that way, but the advertising board was all the way around.
Really?
And I knew I couldn't jump over it. I never had that. I just kept running to the side, and then I found a gap in the side, and then for some reason ended up in the crowd. So obviously, for everything it meant on that day, being at the club for as long as I have, grown up in the city, I knew how much it meant to everyone involved, but also what it would be like if that happened. So to be part of that group of players that were able to do it that day, but there was always that belief, genuine belief that we believed we could win. You know, it wasn't as if we're going into the game hoping to win. It was if we hadn't won, it would have been such a nearly season, and that was the full focus leading into that game. We'd had so many tight games against Rangers that season, and they'd beat them on occasion, they'd beat us a couple of times, but we genuinely believed that if we turned up and we played to our best, we felt we were better and we could win the game. Of
course, several months before you'd lost the League Cup final to Ross County, which would have hurt that because you'd have been overwhelming favourites for that, so that would have enhanced or intensified the motivation for the Scottish Cup final.
Yeah, exactly what you just said. So the motivation side to it, so there was that. When I think back today, we're a Premier League team, we were in the Championship Cup final with Ross County. We went 1-0 down, we got back into the game, and then a little bit of a sucker punch at the end because I felt we were the stronger team and we were going to go on and win the game for how we played. Added to that, the week before we played the cup final, we lost out to promotion for Falkirk. Remember, so we lost a goal in the last minute against Falkirk. And in that term about such a nearly season, you know, imagine getting to 2 cup finals, missing out on promotion and nearly being the greatest season ever but not quite getting there. And everybody talking about the Hibs in it type label that was thrown at the football club at the time. And as I say, coming in on the Monday, the motivation for us was like, I remember it clear as day thinking like, no, we can win here and this season can still be incredible and a great opportunity to try and put something right, and obviously delighted that we're able to do it.
Is it still kind of spine tingling for you to think about that moment and what it meant and everything that came with it? You still get that wee kind of emotional element of it?
I do, especially the emotional side to it 100% when especially if I watch anything back. You know, I feel so grateful for the opportunity and the fact that how the game played out. You know, if you think about if there's ever a scenario how it could go, it was Roy the Rover stuff. You know, as a young boy growing up and you're playing at the park with your mates, it's always pretending to be someone, isn't it? You're always trying to be someone in the Premier League, or ball comes in and you score a goal in the cup final, and it's all what dreams are made of. It really is. And then I think to score a goal in the last minute that wins you the cup is a very privileged position to be in, and as I said, I'm so grateful for it.
Come on, what perks have you enjoyed because of that moment? Were there immediate benefits in the city? I'm talking free meals, free drinks. No, please tell me.
I've had the odd bit of that. Probably gave me an extra couple of games as a manager. I couldn't win a game, to be honest. In fact, I scored 1 goal. I got asked that the other week. Remember that goal, and it was almost as if the rest of my career had been hopeless apart from that 1 goal. So I think no,
you must have had moments surely when you've been out in the town, even now, where people going, that's on us. Brilliant moment, David, thank you.
To be honest, you know what, I appreciate more. I appreciate, but I've came to appreciate more because when you're caught up in it and you're playing all the time, it's just moving on to the next thing. So as a result of us winning the cup there, we then went into Europe, we're playing Bromby and teams like that. So you're constantly trying to get the next thing as a player. Now that I've retired from playing and I look back over my career and things like on YouTube and things like with my son, I've already talked about my son earlier about how much he's invested in it. He watches it back and to be able to have the memories and what that means to me. But then even still now, if I go anywhere, it'll be sharing other people's stories about it. You know, when you hear people like, I've been to so many cup finals, I didn't think my dad would ever see it, and little moments like that when you play, you just go, oh, that's great, that's nice. But when now I've stopped playing and I reflect and I've now had that many stories with different people, how much it actually means to people, I do feel really, really lucky.
So no freebies then, no?
I had the odd freebie, but I've not abused it, that's for sure.
People have insisted that you have a particular freebie and you've taken it. Go on, share it with me.
I'm trying to think, I actually had a real random one in Bathgate one day. We went into just a local restaurant, 1912 it's called. We went in, had a normal bit of lunch, and then just as I started for the ball, and it was like, no, that's been sorted. It was like how's that been sorted? How can that happen? And it was Davey, the guy, came over and just says, the guy who was sitting over there, he'd actually paid for the flight. He said, massive Hibs supporter, just wanted to say thank you. And he left me a wee note that just said, thanks for that, thanks for our day in May. That's all it said. But he never came over, he never interrupted me and my wife for that. Genuinely just randomly paid for my meal. So that was very, very generous of the guy.
I mean, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you a bit here today, but I immediately get a sense, David, that you're quite humble. Do you feel you're very appreciative of it, of course, but do you get almost embarrassed with attention, too much attention, or is it you're not the type that would get carried away with that kind of thing? That's like,
no, I'd like to think that
it's kind of humbling for you that
no,
it means that much to people.
I wouldn't, embarrassed is not the right word, but I don't enjoy people talking about me, like in a positive way, or that's when I feel like it gets a bit like, I'm not really one that enjoys the limelight, let's just say. I think you should always be humble in everything you do, because I think, and I touched about that even from a management point of view, or even when I played, about trying to stay not too high when it's good, and try to stay when it's not too low when you get down there. And I think being humble is a big thing for me. One of my key beliefs, I think, I would say, it's probably not far off that, is there's always somebody better off, and there's always far more people worse off than you, regardless of the situation. The world's got a strange way of always putting things into perspective, and I think that's something that I'm so grateful for, the opportunity and career I had. When I think back to, we just talked about how it started, so the opportunity I had going down to Manchester United, going and playing it, the opportunity, and being lucky enough to play once for the biggest club in the world at the time, but then ending up, the challenges, injuries I had throughout all my career, everything, I've genuinely believe all the highs and the lows was geared up for my one moment on the football pitch that I was lucky enough to get, and that was that day in May for me. And I think that's any young player starting out, don't get carried away. You need to keep your feet on the ground and keep working as hard as you can, because you don't know what's round the corner. And I think it is over in a heartbeat. It is over so fast, and I've certainly got no regrets over my playing career, and been very lucky to go through.
It's understandable that one moment can overshadow so much, but I mean, a year on from that, you also scored in the game that clinched promotion back to the Premier League, which in itself is huge as well. And you scored against Rangers in the cup final, clearly, as we've been talking about, but your first career goal was against Rangers as well, was that correct?
It was, yeah.
So
a lot of people would talk about that, actually. Like, I think since I was never prolific anyway, but I think 3 of my first 5 career goals were all against Rangers. I think, and it took me, I don't know how old I was, 26, 27, before I scored my first proper competitive goal. I was always back for corners, which when you think back to how that's then transpired now, it was just probably one of the things. When I played down south, I was always relatively quick, and I was always back the pitch at corners and things like that. And then Alan Stubbs put me in a slightly more advanced position. He played me in a back four. Whenever it was a back four, I was in a diamond, so I was able to bomb forward and provide the width, but I also played wing back a lot. And he always encouraged me to get in at the back post. I'd done a lot of work with John Doolan and Alan about getting in at the back post, and trying to get in and get your head on things, and obviously that benefit paid off a lot. But that's how I scored my first goal, getting in at the back post against Rangers at Ibrox. I
mean, your playing career, I thought there's another unique element of your playing career. Of course, Sir Alex signed you for Manchester United. You then played for Sir Alex's son, Darren, at Preston.
That's right, yeah. That was my first, like when I left Man United, so I had a few loan periods in between. Went over to Antwerp, which was a feeder club at 18, right off the back of my debut actually, and then done my ACL, so that was the first time I had real adversity in my career. Managed to get myself fit, and then went out on loan to the Championship at Plymouth. So I had 2 different stints at Plymouth, which was brilliant, because that's when I really realised playing every week, what it means to play every week. Mortgages on the line for boys that are playing, but actually it's not about development now, it's about going and playing. And I was at that young, I was 22 at that point, when it was still had another year at United or opportunity to go and play, and Preston came up as an opportunity to go and play. Brilliant club, obviously, still local to Manchester area. I was able to stay where I was. Well, Hayley had moved down by this point, so she was able to stay and work in Manchester, and it was a fantastic opportunity for me. And I was at that point where I knew I wasn't going to break into Man United's first team at that point. I was 22-year-old. I'd been around the first team squad, but never ever broke in properly. The players that were signing at the time as well, they signed the Brazilian twins came in at that point as well. Wes Brown was still playing right back, Gary Neville was still there, John O'Shea, so it was really challenging to get there. I knew it was always going to be, and on reflection I was never good enough, but I think the opportunity to go and play in the Championship, and it was Darren was the manager, which was good, because probably gave him a bit of a hand to get there. Maybe that was the benefits of not having one of the greatest managers as your manager at the time.
Well, David, thanks very much for the invite to come to the training ground, your hospitality. Delighted that things are going well for you now, and big credit to you for coming through such a difficult period. Thanks very much for your time, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.